Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of the Hare Krishnas in Britain podcast. This is a regular podcast in the UK. It's been going for about a year now, where we virtually travel around the country to chat to devotees, meet devotees, find out about their projects, their initiatives, what they're up to, what they're not up to. And this week, we're back up to Scotland. I have to say, one of the downsides of the pandemic is I haven't been to Scotland since 2019. I don't think, and I've got to confess, I'm missing it. I do love Scotland. I have a slight preference for colder weather as well. And I'm really pleased to welcome our guest this week, who is Bhakti Prabhu. Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Great to have you with us. I think Bhakti and I probably first met around 5 years ago, possibly at a Rath Yatra in either Edinburgh or Glasgow.
I remember first meeting you at London University. It was a Saturday afternoon, and Ridananda Swami was giving a talk. And I remember I met you there, and yeah, I do remember you were very respectful towards me, and it did like, it did have an effect, I did notice. I thought it was very nice, actually.
I remember now, because my goodness, it's February 2022 already. It was almost 5 years. It was almost 5 years ago that I was initiated by Ridananda Maharaj, just outside of London. And I remember a group of his disciples and followers and fans came down or came to London to meet him, and you were there. I remember now.
Yeah. I remember, me and Palika came down, and it was in Chawton. Yeah, he was in Chawton at the time. And Saturday afternoon, he gave a talk at London University, and that was the first time I met you.
Yeah.
And I always remember it because you were so nice. And,
oh, bless you.
it was nice to meet you. And
I didn't pay you to say that before we started broadcasting.
No. But, I do notice sometimes small things make a big difference. If somebody, makes a small gesture, or, I kind of notice these things, and I notice some advanced devotees as well. They see a small thing and they're like, that's really nice, that's really good. And yeah, it does, it's good to make good impression with people, good first impressions,
So, Bhakti, tell us a bit about you in terms of where you're from. You're obviously definitely Scottish. We can tell it by your accent. Tell us where you're from and how long you've been involved with the Hare Krishna movement.
Okay, I'm from a small town in Coatbridge, not far from Lesmahago. Lesmahago is a town where the temple is. I come from Coatbridge. It's a town about 10 miles from here. I was brought up in the 60s. It was like mining, steelwork town, heavy drinking. The diet was like pie, chips and beans, and then a cigarette. And the local hospital there, I'm told, is the worst in the world for heart disease, So when I first went to the temple, 1981, I was in Chaitanya College, and I stayed for about 3 weeks, and I was leaving, and I remember Jiva Pavna at the time. He was like the Bhakti leader, and he's like, oh, why are you leaving? The food not good enough? I was like, the food's the best I've ever tasted. It's like far better than I was used to, It definitely wasn't because of the food that I was leaving. I didn't really, when I first went there to stay, I didn't really intend to stay for long. In fact, staying for 3 weeks was a lot longer than I intended to stay for. So yeah, from Coatbridge, small town, I just went to school, primary, high school. I remember at primary school, the teacher played the George Harrison song, My Sweet Lord, all afternoon. And he was looking for volunteers to go and get that record. Me and another boy put our hands up. So we went up to get that record. And I remember we were really dilly-dallying on the way back. And when we get back to the class, the teacher was like, what kept you so long? Why he's turning up at this time? It was like, but we managed to get back. Maya didn't keep us from our service. So we managed to get back to the class, and the teacher played the George Harrison song, My Sweet Lord, all afternoon. So I always remember that. And I still keep in touch with some of my primary school friends, and they do remember our teacher playing that song, and they've got fond memories of that. Yeah, high school was a bit of a kind of sort of nothing much happened. There was nothing much going on. Primary school was more like all the kids knew each other, knew each other's parents. My mother was a school teacher there. My aunt was a school teacher there, and my aunt used to come home to our house for lunch. So it was quite a nice experience. Primary, high school, it was like, it was good kind of meeting new people and things, but I did a bit too much talking in first year, and so they put me into like another class where I didn't know him, you know, and I was top of the class. I was top of the class that year, you know. I was up shaking hands with the headmaster getting a certificate. So they forced me into being top of the class, and so yeah, then I just left school, got a job in a park. I left school when I was 15, got a job in a park. It was like a park where there was wolves and deer, and there was different animals and things. So that was quite interesting. And it was just a summer job. And then I got a job in a factory for a while that I didn't like so much, but I stayed for a few years. And then I went hitchhiking around Britain, which was quite exciting and quite.
So how old were you when you went hitchhiking?
I probably first started hitchhiking when I was about 17, 18. Well, in the 70s, end of the 70s, it was very safe, and a lot of people would stop and give us lifts, and people were very friendly and nice. So it was quite exciting, and it was an adventure when you're a teenager. And, you know, once 3 of us went hitchhiking from like Glasgow to Torquay. It took us like a week to get there, and when we got there, it's like there was 2 in the back of a horse box and the other one sitting in the front with the driver. So, you know, it was an adventure. It was, you know, great to get around. So I ended up in London, and after about a year hitchhiking around, I ended up in London, and I'd met this friend, and we were walking around the West End, and he said to me, let's go up the Hare Krishna temple. They give you a big feast up there. And I was like, no, I don't want to go. They just kind of like looked down on us that we're only there for the food, and I didn't want that. But he talked me into going, so I went, and it was quite nice, to be honest. And they gave us as much prasadam as we wanted, as much food as we wanted, and to be honest, I thought very nice, but a bit too nice for me. The background was brought up, and it was like, you know, from this mining heavy drinking town, all these women walking around all polite and with nice saris, serving everyone food. I was, this is very nice. But I remember one of the women, she was serving the guy next to me, and she said to the guy, if you eat that, you get a human form in your next life. So I didn't have to think about that. I just knew what to do. I just took a spoonful of prasadam, and I just ate the whole plate to guarantee myself a human form, you know. It wasn't something I was on the mental platform about. I kind of knew she was speaking the truth, you know. So I didn't waste any time in making short work of the plate of prasadam. So it was a very nice experience, my first visit to the Hare Krishna temple. We used to live in a squat at the time, and there was some devotees around the squat, and we used to kind of sing a few songs and talk about the philosophy and go down the temple on a Tuesday, Wednesday night. And my brother was on holiday from art school, I remember, and he came to stay with us, and I took him to the temple. And when we had some money, we bought some books, and, you know, the devotees invited me to back to Vedanta Manor, then on to Chaitanya College. So, you know, it was a good introduction, quite natural. And yeah, I didn't, you know, I didn't have any problems with the philosophy, the principles, or accepting Krishna was God. It was fine by me. It's okay, you know. Yeah.
So what was it about the philosophy that attracted you all those years ago?
Well, I thought it was great that the devotees loved the animals. So, I mean, okay, I was brought up in a scheme, but, you know, I was growing food when I was 10 years old. I was probably vegetarian quite a lot of days too. Um, um, and like I had my pet rabbits, I had my pet dog, my budgie, my goldfish. You know, I considered myself an animal lover, you know, although to be honest, I'd never heard of a vegetarian before I went to the temple. So when I went to the temple and, you know, I was around all these people that loved the animals, I just thought it was so nice. And, you know, I bowed down to the devotees out of, you know, out of love, out of respect. You know, nobody had to force me to. It was like, okay, you know, these devotees, you know, they demand respect. You know, they're worthy of my worship, you know, for that alone. So it was a deep experience, my first experience at the manor and at Chaitanya College. It really, and I liked the food, and you know, I always was a music lover too, and I did like going out dancing, so it was kind of like, you know, perfect for me, the Krishna conscious lifestyle. And yeah, life on other planets I could accept, and I was brought up Christian, and I had one question. I had one question in Christianity: why are the children starving in Africa if there's a God? So when I went to the manor and listened to the classes, then I got the answer. I realized the answer was reincarnation karma, and that also the Bhakti Yoga process. It doesn't matter what these, you know, if someone is suffering because they deserve it. But the main thing I learned was that I could do something to help someone who was in a suffering condition if I practiced Bhakti Yoga. Because I don't see the point in arguing whether someone's suffering, you know, due to their karma or not. It's like, why argue about that? Do something to help them get out of their suffering and help them not to get in a suffering condition again. So that really did help a lot. That question was answered because, you know, my grandmothers were pretty strict Catholics. They were up early in the morning. They went to church, you know, sometimes every day. Their houses were clean. When you went in their houses, they'd invite you in and sit you down, and you would have like a Sunday feast, nice cakes, and you know, it was a bit like visiting a temple, going to my grandmother's houses at times. And, you know, when we were children, they'd buy us rosary beads and things like that, you know. So, you know, the Krishna thing wasn't completely new to me. I do, the Guardian newspaper did an article on me about 5 years ago that I was growing food since I was 10, and that was because I'd been a gardener in a previous life. And they printed that in a newspaper, which I thought was very good and broad-minded. So, yeah, I was convinced that, yeah, I'd done this before, definitely. And that's why I can live this way quite naturally. This lifetime, you know.
You met devotees in 1981. I think your story is similar.
I first started going to the temple in 1980.
Wow. 42 years ago.
Yeah, when I was 20. Yeah, we used to go along and sing and dance in Soho Street Temple, you know. Soho Street Temple, there used to be a lot of young people go along there at that time, young Italians, Americans, English, Scottish. A lot of young people used to drift into London, like, you know, the 70s, 80s, and just kind of, you know, happy about the place sort of thing. The 70s, you know, was still kind of, the 60s, 70s mood was still around a bit, you know. And yeah, so people used to drift to London and just hang out. And the Krishna Temple in Soho did a great service in that way, a fantastic service for the whole world. It helped a lot of young people, because my brother used to come along with us at that time as well. Now he's teaching filmmaking at like London University now, and you know, he says, oh, if it wasn't for the Hare Krishnas, I'd have starved in London, you know. So I'm sure
That's
there's a
nice.
lot of other, I'm sure there's a lot of other people like him and me, and also one other brother. I took some books and some tapes home when I left Chaitanya College, and my younger brother picked him up and started playing the tapes and reading the books, and he went and he joined the manor for a while, for about a year in 1985, 86, and you know, he shaved up, doty, everything on, and he was out distributing books. So good for him. It's like so, you know, the family was quite you know, favorable. My mother actually told me to join the temple, you know, when I went home after being at the manor in Soho Street. My mother, you know, she saw the way I was living and, you know, some of the people I was hanging about with. So she says, well, you know, if you like the temple, why don't you go and join? Why don't you just go and stay? So eventually I did that. So in one sense, she was my guru, you know. It's like, because yeah, I had it. My mother was like, she was my best friend in life, sort of thing, you know. And
Is your mother still around?
no, she's not around any longer. She departed in 1986. She left her body, but she did tell me to join the Hare Krishna movement before she left her body. So she's gone on to better things. That's all, you know, I've got to say. It's like I did a few sacrifices, nice meditations after she left her body. To be honest, it did affect me a lot when she left her body. But, you know, due to knowing the philosophy and practicing some of the principles, it did help me go over her departure because, you know, my mother went at the beginning of the month and my father went at the end of the month. So they both went within a month of each other. They were both only 52. And, you know, it was like when I lived in London and I was sick of working in the building sites and the restaurants and things, I used to get odd jobs like restaurants, shops, building sites. When I was fed up with that, I'd go home to my parents' house and they would always give me shelter. I remember once my mother opened the door when I come back after being on a little excursion. She opened the door and she says to me, I'll give you shelter, but I'm not giving you any money. So it was the relationship was a bit like that. You know, she knew what I was kind of up to, but she would be like, okay, I'll let you in, but you're getting no money. So it was, you know, there was love there and it was an open, honest relationship. And, you know, my parents loved me, but I feel they just didn't know quite what to do or how to cope with life, sort of thing, you know. And I think it's
sorry, go ahead. I've got a question before. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I think it's the case with many people because people say, oh, nobody cares and, you know, there's no love in the world and things. But I like to see a deeper side where, you know, people have got love in their hearts. They do care. They just don't know what to do, really. They don't know how to show it. They don't know how to, you know, they're caught up. I have to do this. I have to do that. My mother has to have a career. My father has to look like a successful businessman. That's, you know, they were caught up with that. And, you know, but I could see there was love. And if there was, you know, another a way of doing things, they would have done it, you know. It's like, that's why I feel the Krishna philosophy is so important to get out to people, you know.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, we have to have guidelines. We have to know what to do to care for people because the real person is the soul. So, you know, we can care for our bodies by coats and trousers, but I mean, we really got to care for the real person as well, the soul, the inner person, you know.
So tell me a bit. So that was over 40 years ago. You met devotees. Tell me a bit about. So your initiated name is Bhakti Dasa.
Yeah.
Tell me a bit about who gave you your name and how that all happened.
Okay. So yeah, I came to Scotland after being around temples in England, and for you know, I first went to a temple in England in 1980. So I wasn't following strictly, although the teachings did have a very deep effect on me. I was following strictly at times, but not over the period of the 10 years. I wouldn't say strictly, but, you know, after my parents died, I had a bit of difficulty and I got over that. And I remember I was living in London and I decided to come up to Edinburgh. And I got a job in a garden centre and I came to the temple at the weekends. And there was a spiritual master there at the time called Balabhadra. And I remember when I first started coming to the temple, the devotees were saying to me, "I'll chant a couple of rounds, offer your food, offer your sandwiches before you go to work." And I was doing it. I mean, I wasn't miserable, but I wasn't exactly happy either, you know. But then when the spiritual master came, his name was Balabhadra. When he came along, I asked him, and he says, "Chant 16 rounds, follow the 4 regulative principles, read Prabhupada's books, come to the temple at the weekends." You know, he gave me all this list of things, and I did it overnight. And to be honest, I was happy. I was happy. I know that's not everyone's, you know, formula for success, or everyone doesn't want to do that, but when I did that, I was actually happy. So after visiting the temple, I used to come every weekend for about a year because I kept my job in the garden centre. And then after a year, he asked me, he says, "Would you like to move in and help us to distribute the books?" So I says, "Yes, fine." And I just distributed the books with like Prabhupada Charan and Gajuma Bihari and Hoxaja Krishna. So they were big book distributors, you know, so it was great training. And, you know, it's like my Bhakti program was a month Christmas marathon distributing books, you know. So it went well, it went very well. And so I stayed in the temple for about 3 years, distributing books and raising funds. And yeah, to be honest, I enjoyed myself thoroughly. And the Balabhadra did help me a lot at that time. He was there in the morning, he was there in the evening. And I decided to leave the temple, though. He didn't want me to leave, but I decided, he asked me to stay actually. And I just decided to leave and stay outside, but continue my practice. So he asked me to continue with the book distribution. So I lived outside in a flat and continued with the book distribution for another 6 years after that. So yeah, I was initiated after a year of visiting the temple. After a year of staying in the temple, I was initiated in 1990.
Okay.
And always remember what my spiritual master said to me at the time of initiation. He said to me, "Imbibe the mood of Bhakti Vinod Thakur." So that meant to me, give the world Krishna consciousness. So personally, myself, I felt that was a moment's association with a pure devotee. At the time, okay, he's gone off the rails a bit, but at the time he was, I considered him a pure devotee. And I mean, he's had his troubles, but I don't hold anything against him, and I wish I'd have been a better disciple, to be honest, you know. So I've got all the time in the world for him, and he did something for me at that time when I was struggling in life, and he gave me a chance. So I'll do all I can for him to see that he goes back to the spiritual world at the end of this lifetime.
Yeah, and do you have any contact with him now at all?
I haven't seen him for a while. I did see him in Edinburgh. The last I saw him was about 10 years ago, actually. He was busking on the street. So I put £50 in his hat, you know. Well, he was, you know, a great soul. And it shows he was sincere, that even although he'd had his troubles and he wasn't at the temple anymore, he was still out there trying to give people Krishna in whatever way he could. So I thought that was very nice. And I wrote him a letter actually about a year ago. I didn't get a reply, but I'd like to see him. before. He's not, as far as I know, he's not very well right now. So I'd like to see him before he goes, and wish him well, and even apologize for not reciprocating with him in a way I think I should have reciprocated with him.
So you've been around the Krishna Consciousness movement for about 40 years, which is a long time.
Yeah.
And certainly you and I have connected quite a bit over the years, because I'm not sure what the correct terminology is, but you've taken shelter, if you like, of Sri Dayananda Maharaj, who is your wife's guru, my guru, and so tell us a bit about that attraction, the appeal that you find in him.
Okay, so in about 206, one of his disciples, Govinda Das, who is from Edinburgh but lives in London now. He's like a pundit. He does a lot of reading and he's very learned. He gives good classes. So he was living in Edinburgh at the time. I was living over here in Lesmahago. So he gave me a CD of lectures of Srinivasa Swami. And a lot of it made a lot of sense to me. It was like, it made a lot of sense. So I went down to London and listened to his talk, and it was very good. And so I continued listening to his lectures, and I remember about, say, 11 years ago, 12 years ago, I was sitting listening to a lecture. And he said, there was one line in the lecture that he said that really made a big difference in my life. He says, if you feel in your heart that you're doing your best, then that's fine. That's good. That's fine. That you can be happy with that. Because I'd always tried, and I'd got success and during the association of the devotees, but I'd never been told this is good enough. It was always like, people wanted more sort of thing, They were happy with what I was doing, but they kind of wanted more, It was like, okay, lots of books out, lots of money in, the fruit and vegetables growing very well, but, can we have some more, please, It was like, I didn't feel the inner me was like, being kind of acknowledged that, wait a minute, I'm trying my heart out, I'm doing my best, you're getting results, can you not be happy with that? It was a bit like that, and I didn't say that to anyone, but I felt that inside, you see. And so nobody had ever said to me, okay, that's good, you're doing your best. So when I read an Andamaraj says, if you feel in your heart, you're doing your best. So that made a big difference to me. I kind of like, okay, I don't need to, work like 18 hours a day and, get up exactly at 4 o'clock in the morning and get, every prayer right in the morning program.
It can be very regimental, can't it?
Oh, the way I was trained, you would not believe. You wouldn't believe the way I was trained. It was up at 4, cold shower, very attentive in the morning program, breakfast. As soon as breakfast finished, out into the car, out on books. As soon as you hit the street, start working till, you come off the street, and it was like, don't waste a second. And you come home in the evening, it's like, have a shower, into evening arti. It was very, very good training. And it did me a lot of good. But in one sense, it was a wee bit too strict, It was like, well, it's like, I can't keep this up. So, yeah, it was like, it was very good. But I suppose, I get to the stage now thinking about things that I don't think I'm going to get everything absolutely right anyway at any time in my life, It's like there's always going to be some discrepancies. There's, I'm never going to be able to follow probably as good as I would like to, but you know, that kind of desire is there to follow properly. And because I remember once I said to Dayananda Swami, oh, I'd love to follow the Bhakti Vinod Thakur. He says, don't even try it. Don't even think about it, you know. So, yeah, we've got certain limits. And it wasn't until later on someone actually, another Swami, said, well, we've got to take our material condition into consideration. You were supposed to look at our material conditioning and think, well, what do I want? How do I want to follow? What's comfortable for me? We're supposed to think like that a bit, whereas I neglected that. I mean, yeah, I neglected that side of things. So, yes, I concentrated more on the spiritual and probably the rules and regulations in the morning program and the principles than actually, you know, looking at what I wanted materially or what was best for me. Not exactly what I wanted materially, but what was best for me. I didn't always do what was best for me materially. I kind of neglected my material life a bit, you know. So that's my problem. That's well, it's not a problem now, but you know, I don't blame MD for that. That we're supposed to think for ourselves in spiritual life and make life what, you know, make of life what we can. You know, when it really comes down to it, we do fly our own plane. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. We're kind of responsible for our own, you know, in our relationship with our guru and Krishna, we're responsible for our own actions, and we have to take responsibility for our own actions. I want to come back in a minute to kind of how we can maybe share Krishna consciousness with a Western audience. But you've mentioned about that you were in the Guardian newspaper. You're kind of well known in the devotee community, and I guess outside of the devotee community for being a keen gardener. Tell me a bit about why you love gardening so much, and what is it that you're interested mostly in?
Well, I started gardening when I was 10. It was just something I liked doing. It's definitely from a previous life. I've done it in a previous life. Because no, my parents didn't teach me. They didn't teach me at school, but I just somehow or another started gardening when I was 10. And I've always been a bit that way inclined, like towards nature. And, you know, I'm quite you know, I like to get results. You know, quite a fruitive person. You could say if I'm doing something, I like to get something back for it. And I like to look at what's in the bank and things like that, you know. And growing food is like printing your own money, and you're getting top quality food, and keeps you fit physically. It's good for the mental health because it's regulated, and you're productive, and it's good for spiritual life because I'm offering the food. So it's just, you know, really good, enjoyable, all round fun, really, you know. And Balabhadra, you know, he knew I was really into growing food because I started growing food in Lesmahago at the temple in 1989. It wasn't just, you know, the last few years, suddenly we've got an eco farm. I started growing there in 1989, and I started selling books and collecting money for eco farm in 1989. So it's a lot of work's been put into it. And so, yeah, after I distributed books for 10 years, you know, I was out and I was at a gardening project in Edinburgh, and there was a couple of ladies at the project, and we went to Edinburgh for the day once, and we came across this garden that, you know, we're looking for volunteers, and I volunteered, and it was very good training. It was like they were training people how to grow organic flowers, fruit, veg. The whole project was vegetarian and did a high cleanliness standard, and they knew I was into Krishna consciousness, and they were very respectful. And there was people went along there that had some difficulties in life. Like people could go along if they had problems with addiction or mental health or just long-term unemployment. I just happened to stumble across the project. I wasn't looking for, to solve my problems really, but I think it was Krishna's arrangement actually. So yeah, I made friends with the staff, and I took all the trainees to the temple and things like that, and uh, the thing about that project was I just went along to learn how to grow fruit and veg and flowers, but a lot of people made friends with me. So I'd never really experienced that aspect of Krishna consciousness in my life up till then, because it was always stay in a small community of devotees and go out and distribute books and not make much contact with the public. And when I was distributing books and getting money for them, I used to think I'd like to get to know people a bit better that are being so nice to me on the street. So when I went to this gardening project, people were making friends with me. People were asking me, what is this temple? And we'll help you. And they were just so nice. And after a few years of being at that project, I thought to myself, well, if everyone's approaching me and being so nice about helping me and helping me, grow food for the temple, then I'm going to go out and start meeting people. I'm going to go to projects and start meeting people. So I did that. There's a project about 5 miles from the temple here. It's like a hippie community. They grow food and things. So I took a walk across there, and they were very friendly, very nice. And so they put me on to other people who were growing food in the local area, who had orchards and small holdings and things like that. And they put me on to people that gave us grants for fruit trees and things. So it worked out. It was like, it was amazing how things worked out. I thought, well, if people are going to be so nice and friendly with me, then I'm going to go out and meet people, because Shama Sundar, the Prabhupada disciple who preached to George Harrison, he said, if you stick your neck out for Krishna, he's got no option but to help you. So I felt, that was definitely the case. I was going out to see, okay, who wants to help? And people were coming forward. And some of the people that came forward, I was thinking the most unlikeliest people that would take to Krishna consciousness and come to the temple. I was actually staying away from some people, and they came forward. So I could see that was Krishna. I could see, okay, Krishna's, I'm doing something for Krishna. Krishna's showing me what he can do. So yeah, it was very good. Growing food and flowers and things, very good for community spirit, very good for making long-term friendships, lasting friendships. And it's like gardeners are usually very mellow, easygoing people. It's like, if you've been growing flowers and fruit and veg all day, you're exactly like kind of uptight in the evenings. You're kind of like quite relaxed, and it's quite nice, to be honest. The whole lifestyle of growing food, I think, it's so important for the world to get back into that, to connect with where the food's actually coming from, the joy of growing and offering, and the enjoyment of partaking in the prasadam and sharing the food with others. It's, I made so many friends, and I'm still friends with lots of people that I've gardened with over the years. And a lot of people that don't chant Hare Krishna are very good friends of mine, and they appreciate the growing side of Hare Krishna. They don't want to particularly buy a book on the street, but they really appreciate the devotees are growing food and flowers and, looking after cows and things like that. So yeah, it's like, it was another aspect of Krishna consciousness that opened up. So, I mean, I was very happy with that. So for the future, I'm like, okay, I don't really know what's going to happen in the future. Something could work out beyond my conception. because many times in the past, it's like when I first went to the project in Edinburgh to grow flowers and fruit and veg, I never imagined that I would take all those people to the temple and they would put me on to people that gave me grants for growing the growing project, and they would get the government involved, and there'd be people coming along to the temple from all over the world and singing and dancing. I thought I was walking out doing a bit of gardening training, and this, it ends up like there's, I don't know how many thousands of people around the world benefiting from it and singing and dancing in the temple. So I'm positive for the future, and I'm like, well, there might be a surprise in store for me and a lot of other people,
So in a minute, I'm going to ask you a question about kind of Krishna consciousness and how we can spread it. But let's just chat very briefly, because we're going to chat about it on a future podcast in a few months' time, about your book. You spent, a lot of people did lots of different stuff during lockdown, and I understand that you wrote a book.
Yeah, well, it was like, God, you had to do something, didn't you? I mean, it was like, my God, I'm not wanting to be stuck in a house, I can tell you. It was like, oh my God, I've been out and about like all my life, never stay in a house for very long at all. So yeah, I thought, okay, what we're going to do here, it's like, so as I did start doing little talks on Facebook, and that went well, and I thought, nice. And somebody that listened to the talk said, why don't you write a book? And I says, that sounds like a good idea, and I asked a few other people what they thought, and they says, yeah, go ahead. So and I felt in my heart it was the right thing to do. So yeah, I just started writing about some of the experiences I've been talking about, and I quite enjoyed doing it because it brought all these people back to my mind. It was like I would go out in the garden in the morning and do like the compost and the digging and picking fruit and veg and flowers, and like decorate my altar with the flowers and cook the food up and have lunch and watch a like Indrajumna Swami video during lunch, and it was very nice. And the afternoon it was like, okay, write about my experiences. Not exactly not during the lockdown. I didn't write a book about what I was doing during the lockdown. It was about like the experiences I've talked about, going along to different farm communities and community gardens and things like that. And, I've done it as like an offering to the world. The world and the people have been very kind to me and shown me a lot of love. So I've done it as an offering of love to, to the world, So, yes, it was quite enjoyable doing it. I never tried writing before, So, yeah, I've got a few friends that are writers and one journalist friend, and they were very encouraging and they gave me some good tips and things, So I thought it was a good way to spend the lockdown. And yeah, it was like, it's quite happy doing it. And I haven't got it out yet, but I mean, if it comes out and it's successful, then I'll write more,
So your book, I don't know how much you want to say at this stage, but because it's not been published yet, but so your book's a book about kind of gardening linked with spiritual issues, or
yeah, sure, definitely. Well, it's all about the spiritual side of things, because there's so many gardening books out there. I mean, there's millions upon millions, and a lot of them are very good. And there's lots of good gardening programs on. And Monty Don's been to Bhakti Manor and seen around the grounds, and he makes great gardening programs. And a lot of other people, I really like some of the gardening programs. They're very, very good. And I don't claim to be the best practical gardener. I garden more for like enjoyment, for fun, and I'm competent. I can, I've had a lot of success growing and gardening. So it was just I wanted to emphasize like gardening with love, treat the plants with love, and Krishna, the Krishna, you know, how Krishna is involved in it all, like Krishna is the fragrance of the earth and things like that. It's a very pleasant, easy way to perceive of God, you know. So I just tried to get that across.
It's great, and I think the name of the book you've told me is Bhakti in the Garden.
Yeah, something like that. I haven't decided that, you know, for sure, you know, but you know, something like that. Yeah, something, you know, just to get.
It's got a nice pun because obviously Bhakti in the garden, as in Bhakti yoga, devotional practice, but also your name is Bhakti.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's
sure, yeah.
I don't know if that's the intention to call it Bhakti in the garden. It's a nice kind of comical pun, I think.
Yeah, it would be something like that. Maybe not exactly that, but you know, something like that. I mean, yeah, it's just like, you know, I thought it was a good way of spending the time, you know. So I hope other people think I've spent my time wisely as well doing it.
Yeah. Because I think for a lot of people, the temptation was to just watch a lot of TV and eat eat a lot of food, prasadam. You know, the temptation for a lot of people did spend a whole year literally doing nothing.
Yeah, I did a bit of that too. You know, don't think I didn't. You know, I mean, for me to sit down at a computer was very, very, very difficult. Actually, I mean,
Yeah.
I'll go out and I'll dig a garden and I'll dig potatoes and I'll pick strawberries and I'll put polytunnels up and I'll make compost heaps. But you know, I find it difficult to sit down at my laptop. But just before the lockdown, me and Palika, we did a wee college course on computer studies and computer competency, you know, learning a bit about how to use computers and things. And it went quite well. We had a nice teacher and yeah, so I mean, I didn't buy a laptop till the lockdown. I didn't buy a laptop till the lockdown. I never ever had one. Never was that way inclined. It was like, I hadn't time for a laptop. I was always too busy doing other things. But I can see how by going online and using a computer, it can be a great asset for Krishna consciousness. Because, you know, nowadays, I'm quite happy sitting and chanting Hare Krishna and reading books and listening to bhajans a lot more than I was before the lockdown. And, you know, I like reading the prayers and actually, you know, reading, you know, what I'm actually singing about, you know.
Yeah. So I'm really excited about the book. I know we've had some chats previously about publication and all of that, and I've tried to kind of steer you in the right direction. And because there's quite a few devotees now that have published their own books, which is really good. You know, it's good to hear about what devotees are doing around the world. And you've always been, I mean, I don't know you that well, obviously, but I think I've always seen you as quite an open-minded and slightly progressive devotee in terms of trying new things.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
And you certainly, from what I've seen on your social media, you're always or often out there doing book distribution, sometimes even on your own. You know, so this is quite, I mean, because we've been chatting for almost an hour now, believe it or not. Let's kind of chat a bit about how you think we can spread Krishna consciousness and how can we attract more Scots, English, Brits to the Hare Krishna movement.
First thing, I've got to say, well, we shouldn't be fanatical, you know, about our rules and regulations and principles. We should take from Prabhupada that, you know, that isn't the most important thing. The most important thing is to love devotees and love Krishna, you know. And if people see that, they will take to Krishna consciousness because that's what they're looking for. But due to the conditioning of people in the West, religion's got a very bad name, and you know, you can't mention God so much. So, you know, as devotees, we tend to be a bit careful about, you know, how we're approaching people and how we're trying to present Krishna consciousness. And yeah, we can maybe be a bit too careful at times. And hold back a bit. And, you know, we like to protect ourselves as well because we value our lives, and, you know, we have got good lifestyles and we are quite happy in general. So we don't want, you know, that to be wasted. And so we can kind of be a bit too careful about protecting ourselves. And so, I mean, I would say, you know, all we can do really is just go for it, you know, go for it. Come up with ideas for yourself, as long as they're, you know, as long as they're within the guidelines of Krishna consciousness. Think for yourself as an individual person, what you can do, how, you know, what your mood are, what you like doing, and you know, be ourselves, and try and, you know, like, appeal to people about the joys and the happiness of Krishna consciousness without, you know, being hard, sort of thing, you know. Because our prayers, they are very deep, very beautiful, and you know, we do enjoy within, but getting that across to people that don't enjoy within, they're into the material life, and they're being educated in that way and brought up that way, then, you know, it's like, you know, we can be a bit of a threat, you know. It's like, and why take it if you've got a good career ahead of you, and, you know, you can get married and have a nice house and a family and all that, why kind of take a chance with, like, the Hare Krishna movement sort of thing, you know, if you're not sure about them, you know? So we gotta, you know, I think we gotta build up trust, people's trust, you know. We gotta earn that trust. We just shouldn't think people should automatically trust us because we chant Hare Krishna, you know. We gotta earn trust, and that takes, you know, sometimes many, many years, you know. It's one of the reasons I live in Scotland and stay around my family and friends, because, you know, and devotees that have known me a long time, because, you know, I feel there's a bit of trust there, and I feel if people trust me, I can operate on a more kind of sort of relaxed and you know, sort of easygoing and more natural. I can be more natural about life, you know. So, I mean, it is hard work. I wouldn't say it's not hard work, and we've got to put a lot into it. But, you know, I don't think in Kali Yuga, I don't think we've got any option but to go for it. But, you know, without being fanatical, you know, we don't need to worry about every single, you know, rule and regulation, and, you know, all the standards and everything, you know. It's like, yeah, Shiva Ramaswamy said that once. Shiva Ramaswamy comes out with a lot of very wise quotes. He's like, well, you know, we've got no option but to go for it, you know. It's like, what else can you do, you know? So,
Yeah, and
yeah,
I think that's a good way to just kind of behave, just go for it, because people aren't queuing up to join the Hare Krishna movement. I mean, actually, certainly in the West, in the UK, the number of practitioners
yeah,
of Krishna consciousness is like, I think I worked it out once, it's 0.0002% of the population, or something ridiculously small. It's nothing to be proud about.
well, I do feel, you know, I do feel we've got a lot of friends, though. A lot of people have got a lot of deep respect for Krishna consciousness.
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of people do like Krishna consciousness, but they won't come out and say it in public. It's, you know, we're not that well known that they'll, like, come out and say something in public. And although they will like things about it. And I think it's a case of, you know, somehow or another, you know, keeping in touch with all those people who are friends, all those people who show respect, all those people that have given money and give money, all those people that read the books, all those people that appreciate our growing projects, you know, treat everyone we, you know, if someone has been a good friend to us, treat them with the same respect as we treat somebody that chants 16 rounds and follows 4 regulative principles, you know. It's like, you know, we're all souls, we're all, you know, it's like we're all the same. Some people, if we treat people with proper respect that's maybe just giving some money, then if we deal with them properly, then they can go back to Godhead by the end of their lifetime, you know. That's a start for them, you know. It's like we should be thinking how to cultivate people and how to, you know, help them advance, you know.
Yeah, that's
And
I like that
you know,
approach. Kind of just do it. I love that approach. Just do it. We've got
yeah,
nothing to
but you know,
lose.
make it fun and enjoyable too, you know. It's like, I mean, I look forward to getting out here and getting on a bus because I've cultivated a relationship with the bus driver, you know. It's like he's a friend. I look forward to getting on his bus, you know, and I try and cultivate relationships with people in the shops and, you know, all the different places I go, so that, you know, okay, my life pleasant that way, but also those people benefit and the world benefits, you know.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I was at an ISKCON temple once. I can't remember which one, and someone said to me, "If Christian consciousness is meant to be about happiness and bliss, why does everyone look so miserable?"
Yeah,
I can't remember which ISKCON temple it was, but it was one of the ones in the UK.
yeah.
Uh,
Sometimes it can get a bit much. It's like, my God, you know, I've been up at 4 this morning. I've done all the prayers. I've worked all day, and it's like, you know, I'm not feeling so happy today, you know. But you know, if we actually look at ourselves and say, well, I must be doing something wrong if I'm not so happy, you know, because you know, you know, Krishna is there, so it's up to us to um associate with him, to relate to him, you know. And you know, Krishna is a person. He's not like, you know, he is a person we can talk to and confide in, and you know, we won't blow Krishna out. We're you know, nonsense. We won't blow Krishna out. He'll help us, encourage us if we ask him, and yeah, I've learned over the last year and a half, especially, just add Krishna, just treat Krishna as a person, just be honest with him, and just, you know, add him to my life rather than, you know, trying to follow like Rupa Goswami or something like that, you know. It's like, okay, it works for a while, it works for a couple of years, but after a couple of years, you know, I just end up like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I know I'm not the only one that's felt like that. So rather than, you know, concentrating on all the rules and regulations and cleanliness and what time I'm up at, I've just been like adding Krishna in my life for the last year and a half, and I've never been happier. It's the happiest time of my life, to be honest. The last, even although a pandemic, lockdown, happiest time in my life, because, you know, I'm relating to Krishna properly. That's what he wants me to relate to him as a person.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think your approach is very simplistic, very practical, and you also
Well,
said a key thing there about not being fanatical. That's really, really
yeah,
important.
sure. Well, reading Andy Maharaj, I read his book, Bhagavad Gita, and in it there was one sentence in that I thought he's got it in a nutshell. He says, he wrote, Krishna consciousness is deceptively simple. You don't have to be a big Swami or, you know, PhD or guru, or, you know, you sit in your home, anybody can, you know, relate to Krishna. And Krishna, you know, Krishna can relate to who he wants to, when he wants to. Is nobody can tell him, you know, or you can't, you know, you know, you can't do him favors. You can't shower him with blessings. He's done this, that, and the next thing. It's up to Krishna. Krishna can do what he likes, you know. It's like, yeah, nobody can control him. I sometimes think it must be great being Krishna. It must be, do what you like when you like, and nobody can control you. And, I mean, he must be having a good time, It's like he must be like really enjoying himself, and we can take part in that enjoyment. Krishna is saying to us, look, I'm enjoying, come along, take part.
Yeah,
That's what Krishna put.
I was having a chat with some devotees the other day about Ekadashi, and it was Ekadashi, and we're having prasadam, and they took some maha off of the altar, and they said to me, this is the altar in their house, and they said to me, oh, but this is not Ekadashi. And my initial reaction was, why? And they said, oh yeah, but Krishna doesn't follow Ekadashi, he doesn't need to. And I was just like, well, Krishna can do what he wants. It was quite funny, really.
Yeah,
I hadn't thought about it. I just wondered why it was non-Ekadashi prasadam on the altar. I just hadn't really, I was having one of those days.
Yeah, all these things are to help us to be Krishna conscious, but when it really comes down to it, Krishna as a person, he's like, he's not like going to strike us down with a bolt of lightning if we do eat some grains on a Kaddish, or we're caught up in some bad habits or something. Krishna doesn't even pay attention to that. Yeah, if we're doing a load of service and we're caught up in some bad habits, Krishna doesn't even pay attention. He's just, what's the problem? Just get on with it, Don't let it stop you, that's Krishna's attitude.
We're not going to go to hell forever, necessarily. Well, I theologically in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, there's hellish planets, but hell forever isn't a concept.
Sure, yeah.
Unlike the Christians.
We're not going to go to hell forever.
Well, I was just going to say, yeah, we could. I'm happy to chat about Gaudiya Vaishnava theology if you want to. I don't mind if you want to delve into that. I mean, for me, the big thing, just a massive tangent here. For me, the big thing that was difficult to accept all those years ago was that God was a blue boy with a flute. Because I'm from a kind of Christian upbringing where God was a white man with a beard on the clouds, and all of a sudden God is male and female, teenage boy with a flute with a girlfriend, and you think, what?
Yeah.
I mean, now I accept it wholeheartedly, but I didn't. It was very difficult years ago to accept that idea of God.
Yeah, I have to admit, I've never had difficulty with things like that, the demigods and Krishna. I've never really had difficulty like that at all, It's never been my difficulty at all. I'll be honest and say over the years, if I had a difficulty, it's certainly not philosophical or like a blue boy, and I just accept. I don't have any doubts about that. If I've had problems in the last 40 years, I would say it's relating to the four regulative principles. It was like, well, I wasn't brought up that way. We don't do things like that. Our enjoyment is breaking those principles. You're considered one of the lads if if you're out there and you're, with a girl in your arm and a pint of beer in front of you, it's like, that's the thing to do, and what's the harm in enjoyment? It's like, it's not all bad. And, that was and, it's like I said, when I was in Coatbridge, I did quite enjoy myself. I did enjoy going out dancing and drinking, and, I wasn't like, so, and I always had plenty of friends and everything, and I didn't really suffer that much. I did a bit, but it was kind of like, well, that's the way it goes. And if I'd have a difficulty at relating to the principles and why follow such strict principles and things like that. I mean, I wouldn't say I've got a problem now, but over the years, definitely, there was times when it was like I didn't want to practice Krishna consciousness because of the principles, and I kind of thought, well, I can't take part if I'm not following these principles. But it's like I didn't feel the devotees have really looked down on me or anything because of that. A lot of devotees have helped me out and helped me over the difficulties, and it's like, although, I mean, I do feel at times there is a bit too much emphasis on principles and, the Hare Krishna movement. It's not the end of the world if somebody goes out for a weekend and enjoys himself, and not even if they're not following all the principles. But in the environment of the Hare Krishna movement, it'd be kind of like if a guru did that, he'd be lucky if he could continue with his service as a guru, which I totally kind of disagree with. I think if somebody does have trouble, if somebody does get involved in a bit of material enjoyment, we should rally round, help them, encourage them, help them, not like, okay, that's him, we'll ask him to go after he's given 30 years of his life, It might be a bit controversial, that, but I mean, I do feel it's not life and death, the four regular principles, because, I've been honest, and even at times in my life when I haven't followed the principles and I've been trying to practice Krishna consciousness, I've always felt Krishna was there with me, encouraging me, helping me. He wasn't holding it against me. He still made arrangements for me to preach and to distribute books, and I was quite happy a lot of the time, and these days I'm just like, I don't think about breaking the principles, I don't really think about keeping them. I just naturally live, and I haven't got time for breaking the principles, really, I'm too busy. I'll get too much enjoyment out of Krishna consciousness, so I don't need to go to the lower it doesn't attract me really so much anymore. I'm not kind of afraid I'll lose my Krishna consciousness. Even if I do get involved in a bit of sinful activity, I'm not afraid of that any longer.
You've been practicing for 40 years, so
yeah.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but even if you do fall off the trolley or fall off the rails, it's like you've got four decades of Krishna consciousness behind you in this life. So
yeah,
I feel like I'm giving excuses to break the regs, and I'm not. I don't want people complaining.
No, I don't think, there's, I mean, I'm certainly not doing that, It's like, I mean, I'm confident of going back to Godhead at the end of this lifetime. I'm confident.
I'm not.
Confident.
I'm too much of a sinner. I don't know. I don't even think about it.
Yeah, but that's the way you feel. I mean,
yeah.
I've realized Krishna is a person and I want to be with him. So, Krishna's not going to deny me his association if I want to be with him. That's what he wants. That's, it's like, Krishna's like, here I am, and you go towards him and he won't reject you, It's like, in one sense, not so difficult as kind of it's made out to be, It's like, well, what's the difficulty? One devotee wrote a book about that. What's the difficulty? It's like, well, I was following the principles anyway, before I joined, half the time, and I was praying to God anyway, and I was growing fruit and vegetables. I was singing and dancing, and so what's the big deal now? It's like, just keep doing that, and with the Association of Devotees, I mean, it's like you can enjoy yourself without breaking principles, And if, I don't like, I used to drink a lot, but I don't really like the taste of beer or vodka or anything, Just that was the way we used to socialize, And it took me a bit of a time to get out of that sort of lifestyle,
Mm. Believe it or not, Bhakti, we've been chatting for well over an hour now. And it's been really good to have you as our guest this week on the podcast.
Yeah, I've enjoyed very much. I've enjoyed very much sitting chatting. It's been great. It really has.
I didn't realize you've been around the movement for so long. 42 years is quite a long time.
Yeah, I was at Jai Tirtha's Appearance Day 1981.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where Jai Tirtha is now, but I wish him all the best. And he did give me a chance to, he did a lot of work to, help me take up Krishna consciousness. So all the best to him. I'll do what I can for him.
Yeah. And you mentioned Chaitanya College, which some devotees, some people may not know, that's now Croom Court, which is like a big stately home in Worcestershire. And that was owned by ISKCON from, I think, 1979 to 1984. And quite a lot of devotees such as yourself stayed there or lived there for a period of time. But that's going back some time, isn't it? 40 years.
Yeah,
Amazing.
quite well. Yeah, it's like, yeah, I mean, sometimes I'll be honest and say sometimes I wish I was back there, I wish I was back there and I was in the mood I was in then, because, it was like, very innocent and everything great and wonderful and beautiful in Krishna consciousness. Because, once you get involved and once you go through, years and years and seeing certain things, it does kind of dull your enthusiasm and even put people off, and only a few survive, sort of thing. I don't I want to see a lot more people staying in Krishna consciousness and surviving and making something of their lives, more, because when I joined there was a lot of coming and going, and even in the 90s there was a lot of coming and going, and people have kind of settled down a bit now, and there's a lot of long-term devotees, but I would like to see like more when people come to the temple and take it up, let's make sure they stay, they stay in touch, and they advance, and we look after them, and I feel more like that these days, because I've seen so many people coming and going. It's like, God, what's the, I'd rather have their friendship than the money, than loads of money, So I'm concentrating more on my relationships with people right now than I am on money, because I'll be the first one to admit I did become a bit obsessed with raising money, especially in the 90s, It was like I was just counting the money all the time, how much I was making. Because I mean, I would go out and I would make, £500 in a day, and the end of the 80s or 90s. So it was a lot of money, and you could do something with it if you were making that on a daily basis. So, it's not surprising I get caught up in it a bit, but I don't want to take that mood anymore. I want, the friendships and the Krishna conscious relationships to be the most important thing,
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. I think that's important. And also we need to be better at looking after each other, supporting one another. That's something I think that's missing in the modern day Hare Krishna movement, is supporting this, being friendly to each other, just being nice to each other. Which doesn't,
sure. Yeah. We really, well, you set the example, you set the example. If you see that's a problem, then you set the example. Don't think you can't set the example. You can set the example to gurus, swamis, everybody, you can. It's like you're as capable of doing things as anyone else on the planet.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. Okay, Bhakti Prabhu, we've been chatting for well over an hour now. It's been great to have you as the guest on the podcast this week. And you'll be back a bit later in the year, hopefully, to talk about your book, Bhakti in the Garden, or something.
Yeah, okay.
It's I'm quite excited, actually. I have to say, I don't personally have that interest in gardening the way you do, but I'm really looking forward to reading the book. Because I know the author, so is that
sure, yeah.
personal connection. So thank you all for tuning in to this week's edition of the Hare Krishnas in Britain podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, please do put a nice positive comment, like it, share the link with your friends. And similar with Facebook, if you're watching it on Facebook, feel free to like, love, or care for it. Put a positive comment and share it as well. It's great. Most of these podcasts are being seen by up to 1,000 people every week or whenever we produce them. So that's really good. And we're really touching on some really important subjects that devotees and non-devotees are interested in hearing about. So until the next edition, see you all soon. Hare Krishna.